There's a huge blind spot in the looks-maxing community as far as the connection between the subconscious mind and physical aesthetics are concerned. And I think it's quite a shame because it's one of the things that has helped me the most and that has helped a lot of people to actually not only improve their appearance but also their overall mental health and their reality in general. So I want to talk about this. The evidence behind it is quite interesting because they actually did an experiment called counterclockwise, in which they took elderly people and they essentially sent them to a retreat in which they basically made all of the newspapers to be of 20 years earlier, and they essentially created an entire environment with activities and such, while also suggesting very strongly that those people are 20 years younger, right? Essentially, they were made to do a bunch of things that would assume the identity of them being 20 years younger, while also reaffirming in their head that it is 1959 as opposed to 1979. And the results were actually quite shocking. The people looked visibly younger after only 1 week of doing that, okay? Just 1 week of assuming that they were 20 years younger and doing a bunch of different things to anchor that specific reality in their mind. That is a substantial biological change, right, in just 1 week. Now, how can we apply these same principles to make ourselves more attractive? Well, it's very simple. But first, I'm actually going to tell you how this actually works, because some people, in order to believe in something, in order to have the emotional conviction required in order to get the results from such a practice, they actually need to understand somewhat how it works. So basically, when anything happens inside of your body, it could be wound healing, it could be, getting fatter, getting skinnier, it could be your bones developing, it could be literally anything that happens in your body, is because your brain has a specific configuration which sends bioelectrical signals to your cells, and your cells take those commands from your brain and they rearrange to heal a wound, to make you more muscular, to make you taller, to make you better looking, all of these different things, right? So if we are able to rewire the assumption that we have about our state of attractiveness and just our bodily aesthetics in general by impressing the subconscious mind, what we're actually able to do is to change the bioelectrical signals that your brain sends to your cells, and that's going to make them conform to our vision over time, right? And doing this, especially during puberty, is key because there is way less work that your cells actually need to do because you are more malleable in general. However, even that is a belief. The more you believe that you are set in stone and you can't grow any taller and you can't get any more attractive and like you're 25 and it's over, well, the more your body is going to respond to those assumptions. Notice how a lot of people actually get weaker and lose muscle once they hit 30 years old. That's not because they hit 30 years old, because guess what? Athletes typically peak in their mid-30s in a variety of different fields, right? The reason why men hit 30 and then their testosterone levels drop is purely because of the assumption, because they've read in a paper that once you hit 30, your testosterone levels are supposed to go down forever and you're cooked from there, right? That is a belief that is instilled inside of you, right? This whole thing is a placebo. You can actually be placebo maxing, as I like to say, If you're gonna believe in certain things, you might as well believe in things that do empower you. You might as well believe in things that actually make use of those bioelectrical signals, that actually make use of the power of your mind, so that you can become more attractive, so that you can become more confident, so that you can become all of those different things that you want to be, that are conducive to your ideal life, right? And this is one of the things that I hammer in a lot when it comes to hair loss, right? The more you worry about your temporal thinning and the more you're like, oh my god, I'm losing hair, oh my god, it's gonna get worse, oh my god, it's over, well, the faster it's gonna happen. Because not only are you literally spiking your cortisol, right, non-stop as you are... Damn, this fucking camera won't stay still. Anyways, not only are you going to spike the hell out of your cortisol non-stop worrying about this, but you are literally going to create that outcome. You're sending the bioelectrical signals over and over to create the outcome of you losing more and more hair. And this is especially prevalent if you have any family members who are bald, because a lot of people believe in this genetic fatalism, not understanding the idea of epigenetics. Just because you are genetically predisposed to something doesn't mean that you are 100% a victim to it, right? Those genes need to be triggered, and the easiest example I can give you is acne, right? Some people, they can eat a bunch of slop, they can literally never wash their pillowcase, they can literally just do all the horrible skin habits, just keep touching their face, just all these different things, and still have perfect clear skin. Why? Because genetically speaking, they just don't detoxify through their skin, right? Whereas other people, all of these different things break them out, and it's only by fixing their diets, fixing their habits, etc., that they manage to eventually clear their skin, right? However, this narrative isn't that popular because it gives power, it takes power away from the pharmaceutical industries and it gives it back to you, essentially, right? Remember, if everybody knew this, if everybody knew how to reverse hair loss naturally, if everybody knew how to clear acne naturally, which by the way, I will make a skin maxing masterclass at some point. I do get a lot of requests for that because a lot of people intuitively understood that my ideas about hair maxing are very, very applicable to skin maxing as well. It's basically the same thing, just different things that you're going to use for your skin, right? And I have done extensive research and experiments for that as well, because if you look at earlier videos on this channel and just in general, I have had one of the most stubborn cases of acne you can ever think of. So the things that I'm going to tell you about that is not surface level cookie cutter advice that you've heard before, okay? So yeah, stick around for the skin maxing video. But anyways, to circle back to the heredity of hair loss, the more people believe in the genetic fatalism of hair loss and they look at their relatives, they look at their dad, they look at their grandfather on their mom's side, maybe they heard that your grandfather on your mom's side dictates whether you go bald or not, right? Whatever. The more that idea impresses the subconscious mind, because we believe it to be true, because we believe it to be fact, the quicker you're going to lose hair, right? Because you're just going to assume that it's normal for it to happen to you, whereas it's not actually normal for it to happen to you, right? Now, I'm not saying that you can override every single physical condition with the power of your mind alone, right? Yes, genetics do exist. Yes, factors such as diet, factors such as every single hair maxing habit that I talk about, they do exist. However, here's the cool thing. When you do this thing of just visualizing yourself in your desired outcome and just assume that it's impossible for you to lose hair, that like you've got the most amazing hair, whatever, you're reversing hair loss essentially, and it just grows really, really, really fast, right? And we just keep hammering this assumption in, especially before bed, but I will get to that later. What happens is you will be compelled to actually do the right habits. You will be compelled to actually eat the right diet. You will be compelled to seek the right information in order to bring that into reality, right? You know, it's the same thing with the law of assumption, right? In the sense that if you are trying to materialize certain conditions in your reality, you are going to get the inspiration to take the action towards that goal, while also the universe kind of meets you halfway, right? Now, it's the same deal in this case. However, people just don't understand how much they are destroying themselves by thinking that they are smart, by thinking that they are realistic, by thinking that, oh, they've read the papers or whatever else. It's like, no, all you're doing is you're creating all of these different limiting beliefs inside of your head that are going to make you less attractive over time, right? So practically speaking, what you can do today is essentially walk through the world with the imagination of your desired aesthetic goal in mind, essentially, right? And more importantly than that, you want to visualize scenes in which other people treat you exactly how they would treat you if you achieved said outcome. For example, how would people react if all of a sudden you had a full amazing head of hair that nobody would expect you to have, right? They would treat you a certain way. But if you had the amazing physique that nobody thought you could achieve naturally, well, people would treat you a certain way. Girls would look at you differently, right? All of these different things. So you need to impress the subconscious mind with how people, especially people that you care about, especially people that are close in your life, that is going to create emotional conviction to impress the subconscious mind, which is going to result in the production of stronger bioelectrical signals to bring that into reality. You know, I haven't talked a lot about things that you can do for facial development, right? However, I believe that this practice, which I had been doing basically unconsciously ever since the beginning of my transformation journey, has been a huge game changer when it comes to actually reshaping my facial aesthetics. I look significantly better facially, even if you take away the hair framing it, right? It is significantly better than what it was before, right? But even the hair, you gotta understand, a lot of you, just like me, have certain facial flaws which make them look worse without the hair actually framing your face. Whereas when the hair frames my face, I look significantly more attractive. But basically, you just walk through the world with that assumption in your mind. However, the most important thing you can do, the most important thing, doesn't matter what you do during the day if you don't do that, is before bed to essentially bathe into the assumption of your desired aesthetic outcome. And by the way, in order to make this more effective, in order to make this more useful as well, since, you know, we're trying to looks max, we're also trying to obviously life max, we're trying to get ourselves in a better situation where, you know, people treat us a certain way, we have more power over our lives, all of these different things. Well, you want to essentially tie your aesthetic goal with other characteristics that you want about yourself, with other material conditions that you want in your life, right? So that person that you are becoming, that future version of yourself that is already there, right? Reality has already been created. All we are doing is shifting towards a parallel universe. So you create all of these different anchors. How do people treat you? How do people react to you? But also that version of you. What does he feel like? What does he talk like? How does he act like? How does the world react to him? What does he do in life? And all these different things. And as a result of that, because we've created so many different emotional anchors to impress the subconscious mind, that is going to bring our aesthetic goals into reality much quicker, while also developing other areas in our life. And one powerful thing that you need to do as well is to look at different things that seem like rigid aspects of your identity. For example, your age, that is a big one, right? In my head, I'm still 18 years old. I'm still 19 years old, right? That is the age that I ascribe myself in my head. And in certain situations in which divulging my real age isn't particularly necessary, I will straight up just tell people with full emotional conviction, genuinely gaslighting myself, that yeah, I'm 19 years old. Right? And this specific concept is more so backed by science due to the experiments that they've done on elderly people assuming a younger age. But what this does is over time, this makes me younger. Over time, this improves my skin quality. Over time, this improves my hair, because aging is nothing more than meta-physical degeneration, right? So if you just assume that you don't age, if you just assume that, yeah, I'm 19 years old, this year and the next year and the next year, because only the present exists, there's only one version of me and it's that, then you're going to age way slower. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to stop aging completely and you're going to become immortal, obviously, but there are physical limits and there are psychological limits. So think about it like stretching a rubber band, right? So you've got the rubber band, which is objectively there, right? It objectively exists, but you can stretch it in one direction and you can stretch it in another direction. One direction is the placebo effect, and one other direction is the nocebo effect, right? So, obviously, this rubber band is constrained within physical limitations. You can't stretch it all the way to Jupiter, right? However, you can stretch it to a certain point. And this is what mind maxing is all about. We are stretching the capacity of our subconscious mind to alter our physical reality. It's the same way that, you know, you can manifest a lot of crazy shit in your life. However, you can't just manifest jumping off a building naked and expect to fly, right? So there are physical limitations, of course, but a lot of the limitations we have are more self-imposed than we think. So yeah, basically, before sleep, when you get into that relaxed state, that's when the door to your subconscious mind actually opens up, and when you are much more suggestible to actually reprogramming your subconscious mind. So taking away programs and putting in new programs, right? And this is why hypnosis also works. Hypnosis is nothing more than reprogramming somebody's subconscious mind after putting them in a theta trance-like state where they become more suggestible, right? That's all it is. So yeah, you just fall asleep, you visualize yourself looking a certain way, feeling exactly how you think it would feel like to be in that specific body, looking that specific way, having that specific hair, having that specific skin, you know, the body, the bones, whatever it is that you want. And over time, if you maintain this, you will see physical changes. You will see visible changes. And one thing as well to keep in mind is that depending on the process which is required to achieve your desired outcome, it might actually be brought into reality much easier than other things. So for example, if we're talking about skin quality and if we're talking about muscle building, let's take muscle building for example, because it's a fairly easy one to understand. Well, if your goal is that you envision is like a super jacked physique at the limit of what people would consider to be naturally achievable, well, of course, you're gonna train, you're gonna eat, you're gonna actually be incentivized to do those things effortlessly because you've actually rewired your mind to be that person, right? This is also one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, right? You're actually gonna be consistent, and it's actually gonna be harder to skip a session rather than not skip a session, right? And by the way, I will make a separate video addressing the whole, is exercise bad, does exercise age you, because a lot of people have been completely and utterly brainwashed, and I need to completely eradicate all of the misconceptions around it. But for now, we'll just use it as an example. So, which pathways can be influenced to bring that physique into reality? Well, by upregulating your androgenic hormones, by upregulating your androgen sensitivity, all of these different things that contribute to muscle growth, protein synthesis, etc. Well, all of these processes are instant, right? Like you can change, your hormones can spike very drastically as time goes on. One day you can have a shit ton of testosterone, another day it can completely crash, right? Because your hormonal production is a process that occurs basically instantly, And same thing for rate of protein synthesis, and we could say that androgen sensitivity is something that perhaps is going to take more time to upregulate, but still, as far as anything that goes through the hormone pathway in order to improve your physiology, that is something that you're going to see a lot of improvements very quickly. And this also ties into hair loss, right? This can also impact the rate of androgen activity in the scalp, which occurs when you have an inflamed scalp, right? This is what I recommend to people. Even when you are doing like all of the different hair maxing habits that I talk about, you should also incorporate mind maxing. You should also do these things, right? Because it can have a significant impact over time. And one last thing that I want to say here is that people believe in autoimmune conditions, people believe in all of these different things, that all these different illnesses that the body has, the body is misfiring commands and it's leading to worse health outcomes, worse aesthetic outcomes, etc. But you don't hear anybody talking about the reverse. What if we can actually get the body to a point where it fires positive signals to alter our physiology positively? Because if your body can attack itself, if the body can truly destroy itself, both aesthetically as well as health-wise, then it has the capacity to enhance itself aesthetically. It has the capacity to get significantly better if you send the right signals. And this starts with rewiring the subconscious mind. If you're still watching, I really appreciate you. Keep ascending.